Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Predecessor live stream. I'm Steggs, part of the community team here at Meta Studios, and today we are going to be doing a stream that I have lovingly called Design Time. It's a working title, don't judge me for this. We are going to be looking at some of our wonderful designers to answer a few of your questions, a few of my questions, and we're going to be talking about mainly designer stuff because, you know, we've got designers with us, so it makes a lot of sense. Who are they, I hear you ask? Well, you're not, because they're obviously on screen already, but we have the wonderful lead game designer, Mr. Alex Felton. Hey Alex, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah,
glad to be here.
Excited for the stream? Yeah,
exactly.
That's it. Good. You sound thrilled. I can't wait. We have senior game designer Bloodmordius. Hey, yep. Blood.
Hi. Hey.
How do? Excited?
Yeah, very much so.
Good. And we have, last but not least, we have Import, our game designer. How you going, Import?
It's great. A lot of exciting stuff to talk about today. Glad to be here.
There really is. Now, we've seen a lot in the chat, and we know that some people are talking about console. I'm going to put it out there right now, just to manage expectations, that we aren't going to be talking about console on this particular stream. We are mainly talking about design topics here. But you know, keep an eye out in the future. That's good. Look, why don't we start with taking a little look back on the past month. So we released season 3, and along with that came the latest hero, Serath. Now, she had a few changes and tweaks since players last saw her. Blood, can you take us through some of the design choices behind her new kit?
Yeah, of course. Serath was pretty exciting release. I'm very happy that she's finally out there. As some people may know, I played a ton of Serath back in Paragon. She was probably one of my most played characters. I really enjoyed her a lot, so working on her was really exciting. I got to tackle a lot of the sort of problems that I felt were in Paragon and that translated even more heavily into Predecessor. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start with that, with the whole identity of the queue. Was something that ability we reworked essentially from Paragon. Before, you stood still, selected a bunch of targets and did some damage to them, became invulnerable. This led to numerous issues. One was that you could lose distance on people. It was a really big problem. There's a lot of frustration where you actually couldn't chase targets down as much. Now, this wasn't as bad in Paragon. We did test this iteration in Pred, but personally felt that the sort of like holding yourself still really stalled her engagements, and she was able to get space too easily. So one thing that I really quickly wanted to change there was try and get mobility into this ability, basically, and make sure that she can maintain chasing the target. So we played around with a few things, with her like being able to move while queuing and all this strange stuff. Eventually we got to the way we have it now. You pick the primary target, and you end up at that primary target at the end of the duration. This also allowed us to control the duration and make it less variable, which was another point of frustration, is playing against her. You don't know when she's going to come out of this ability, and how do I deal with her? This way, it's always the same, easy to deal with in that regard, and players can play around it a bit easily. So that was like one of the main sort of design challenges around Serath, was tackling this queue and making this a bit more of a satisfying ability. The second thing was her passive was a really big one, that we wanted to do something a bit more interesting for her. Rather than some of the other passes we've done in the past, we wanted to create more of a gameplay loop here, something for Serath players to look for, and guide players towards a particular play style right from the start of the game. So we begun with this idea that when she kills targets, she's going to find a way to get her ultimate back. A really nice way to do this was dropping out this effigy on the floor that targets could pick up and acquire her ultimate that way. This was like a much nicer way to do it, because eventually she had to commit to the target to then move to the next target with that ultimate reset. And this also came with some fun ideas, with the whole idea that her ultimate is actually available pre-6, which also plays into sort of the idea that even from level 1, we're sort of driving Serath players towards the same pattern, that's look for this kill and look to chain it into that next kill. And that stays true throughout the entire sort of length of the game. And she dropped pretty heavy, pretty strong. We've toned back a few areas of her, but the main thing we're always going to try and reinforce is that resetting identity, DPS, hard scaling character that's just pretty mechanically intensive, but hopefully the enjoyment comes from these multi-kill team fights and this more like protagonist-based playstyle that Serath players will usually have. We want to make sure these moments are possible, but rare through the ability to counterplay and read what Seraph's able to do, and relying on scaling, and the players also have to play pretty well to achieve it too. So this philosophy is tried to be like consistent throughout the rest of her kit, and we tried to make a lot of her sort of kill pressure potential extended over a duration to give those counterplay windows, rather than being like an assassin like Feng Mao, where you burst a target, get out, go back in, burst a target. This is much more stick to the characters, deal damage over a period of time, kill them, move on to the next, and that's where the counterplay starts to come in.
And she really, really does stick to targets, doesn't she? I've got to say, I had a lot of fun playing her. I played my first game of my first ever jungle game. I'm not a jungler, and don't forget, for those that don't know me, I'm also fairly new. So I played my first jungle game with her, and it was a lot of fun just being able to queue into people and have a howitzer try and get away, but you queue, and it was great fun. It really was. Very much enjoyed. 10 out of 10 would do again. Thanks, Blood.
Yeah, thank you.
So alongside Serath, we also had the new hero acquisition feature that came in. Alex, can you just take us through how the system works with the next hero that's coming up?
Yeah, sure thing. So obviously, what we have in right now is like an early version of what the whole system will look like, because everyone already has all of the heroes unlocked as part of the EA bundle. So we just added Serath to the game. She came in at like 5 stages. The way it works, obviously, is she was automatically selected, but players will be able to select heroes they want to unlock, and then every match they play, irrelevant of what hero they play on, will gain XP to unlocking Serath. For the whole range of cast, we are actually using different amounts of stages. So players that join us in later iterations of the game, where not all of the heroes are unlocked, there will be heroes that only have 1 stage that need to be unlocked, 2 stages, 3 stages, 4 stages, and then all new heroes will have 5 stages to unlock. And then we will be looking to reduce stage amount on maybe a 6 to 8 month cadence. We haven't really decided or confirmed it. It's something we'll look to address in the future. So even though Serath is 5 stages right now, in the future she may be 4 or even 3 stages, and then in the much further future she may go down even further than that. And that's how each hero that joins the roster now will interact with the system. As for the next hero and all new heroes going forward, we'll be releasing it's like a pre-release where the hero a week before it's playable, so the Tuesday before the big update. So when 0.12 is going to drop, the Tuesday before that, that hero will be revealed as part of the marketing, and that hero will be already available in the client to select and start gaining experience towards to already unlock that stages. And the players that are engaging with that system a week before release will be able to fully unlock the hero before the launch of the hero. They won't be able to play it, the hero only becomes playable on the update window, but it is an opportunity to make large amounts of progress towards unlocking the hero before it's out, so that you can have it fully unlocked on release day. And yeah, that's basically the kind of ebb and flow we want to get into, and we'll see how it goes and how people take it with the release in 012 and future releases. But yeah, the idea is that basically new heroes will always have this pre-window for a week where you can pre-unlock them, and then after that they'll just be available fully in game in the same way that Serath was. And like I said, in the future, for people that don't have all of the heroes, there are going to be heroes at different stages.
Nice, I like it. That was a very clear answer. Thanks, Alex. Not that I'm not surprised. That sounded surprised. I'm not surprised, Alex. Sorry, I'm not. I promise. So yeah, you'll be able to unlock the new hero a week before, which I think is pretty cool. I think it's very cool. Very cool. So let's come a little bit closer to the present. season 3 is out, Serath's out, we got Hero Acquisition out. We literally yesterday put a new balance patch out, and I feel like it was quite chunky. And again, this is probably only my maybe second or third update at IMEDA, but it felt pretty chunky. There were a lot of really cool changes, particularly with the jungle. So Import, what was the motivation behind those changes, and what else can players expect in the future with regards to the jungle?
Yeah, so those changes generally were quite light, and you can see them as mostly just like a band-aid or something that is going to be iterated on in the future. It was more just looking at the current loop and just trying to make it a little bit better is basically what it was, and I think we achieved that, right? More than anything, what we were trying to address is just the hero diversity in jungle. So a lot of times, like characters like tanks were falling behind, or only characters that could build certain itemization were falling behind in terms of clearing, which then affected like your gank opportunities or how many opportunities you really had to impact the map. And also, we just wanted characters to maybe just play a little bit differently, or just have diverging play styles that people could play. And those are obviously some big notes, and we haven't solved some of the bigger issues in jungle that we have, but we will be looking to address those whenever we can, which is mostly just like the spam ganking and other things that feed into it, which also correlate to some of the map issues that we'll probably talk about later in this podcast. So yeah, that was basically it. Just we wanted to make sure that tanks could play the game more, and we just wanted jungle to feel like a bit more of an active role, until we can have jungle AI improvements as well. It's like farming camps is a little bit monotonous at times, which just means that right now it's like we just want you to farm camps and then just go actually do the fun part, until we can actually make PvEing a little bit more interesting and more dynamic, right? Which is definitely one of our goals.
Makes sense. This actually, it's like you knew. This leads me on beautifully onto the next topic. So I want to look forward a little bit now. Not too far, but just a little bit forward. We've got on our season 3 roadmap, we have jungle AI improvements. What sort of improvements are people going to be able to expect from that, Blood?
Yeah, so kind of like what Import was saying, we want to make the jungle a bit more less monotonous per se. So one of our main goals is to provide sort of some more layers that the players can exploit to gain advantages over each other when clearing the jungle, just the more boring PvE part, whilst also trying to make it a bit more intuitive. Like getting into jungling in MOBAs in a general sense is very difficult. Players can struggle to understand how camps reset and how far can you drag them, for example. This is one thing we'd like to make much clearer, where the boundaries of the camp are, and provide less sort of immediate punishment for players that drag the camps outside this sort of radius. We're also looking to make their pathing and attack patterns just a bit more natural. In general, this is going for all minions, not just jungle minions, but jungle minions first. We'd like their logic to more closely match a hero's logic in the way that their attacks work. So for example, we're now looking into minions attacking while moving, for example, and chasing targets while they attack, much similar to how heroes would do so, and just slow them down as they do that. With that, we're not trying to make kiting too difficult. If they can move while attack, it feels like they'll probably be able to keep pace with you. We're trying to maintain the same style in terms of like sort of how often you get hit in the current jungle, as long as you're moving appropriately. So this is using minions to body block other minions, and also how far you drag them outside the camp and towards other camps in order to improve your clear times. So all of these will still remain skills, and we want to increase the depth that way as well. This helps things with like counter jungling or just faster camp clears where you're dragging the camps away from danger or towards the next camp. Those are sort of things we want to look towards, rather than just standing on the edge trying to finish it off before you move on. Scared to like drag it away from that last little bit. And alongside that, we're also looking for the ability for jungle minions to also path more like heroes as well. So this is including like falling off ledges, is one of the improvements we're trying to make, so that they can chase people down ledges if dragged outside their radius. This goes for things like red buff especially, and this will allow players to manipulate jungle minions a bit further in order to then kite them towards other camps and farm more efficiently. And yeah, that's where the AI improvements will start, at least.
Nice, I like it. Yeah, that sounds good. It sounds good for not just like veteran jungle players, but also beginner jungle players as well. It seems like these changes are going to help quite a lot just across the board for anybody wanting to jungle, right?
Yeah, we'd like to make it very clear, like, when a camp is going to drop aggro from a player, so they don't just suddenly get surprised when it runs back and runs away from them and starts healing. And yeah, that's really important, just trying to onboard people to the role better whilst also providing a less monotonous experience, more skill. Those are all sort of the goals that the AI are trying to accomplish so far.
Nice. Thanks, Blood. Okay, so moving on a little bit, we're still looking forward, so we're going to look a little bit forward again, because this is what we're doing. We want to talk just a little bit about hero affinity, Alex. Now, I've got something that I've been told that I can reveal on this stream. Shall I reveal it now, and then you talk? Should we go for that?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. We're gonna reveal one of the affinity skins. Dun dun dun! It's Drongo with his affinity skin. Alex, what are we looking at?
I mean, hopefully this is not too unfamiliar to players. So, like, obviously, in Paragon there were master skins, players could unlock these for heroes, and we basically they didn't come with the epic assets, but we recreated them using the Paragon original style skins as reference and implement them into Pred. So with the Infinity skin, the Infinity feature, every hero will get its Infinity skin, and that feature is planned to drop on the O12 update. No promises, but that's the current plan, and I'm hoping that we can deliver to that. So I'm really excited to see how the system is received and how people interact with it, and also what you guys think of the skins, and this image here is going to be part of the loading screen images, I believe. So obviously each skin has a loading screen.
I think this one
image
might just be a wallpaper, Alex.
Maybe this is just a wallpaper.
That's my fault.
I don't know. Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, there will be let's say high quality loading screen art like you're used to seeing from all of our skins. So yeah, these will be coming with that system.
That's it. And we will have a dedicated blog, maybe a video, maybe a blog, to go through this new system a little bit more in depth. So keep your eyes peeled for more information soon. So moving on a little bit more, I guess really what we want to sort of talk about is some of the other areas of the game that we're working on. So Import, you've got a few things that you want to talk about here. I think we're looking at stuff like economy and items and things like that. I'm going to let you take it away. What are you working on for the future?
Yeah, so obviously, like, just looking at the jungle changes in particular, we're very dedicated to improving and just iterating on the core loop, right? And just providing the best experience that we can, and also just providing it as content, right? Sometimes changes like the jungle changes, just changing white camps from 2 minutes 15 to 2 minutes, like, it changes a lot about the game, and it affects more than just how jungle plays. And we're looking to do that across the entire game as well, and just find improvements where we can. So namely, like the aspects that you mentioned, the things that we're really looking at is we want to dive into our economy and just look at, and for those who don't know, economy pertains basically golden experience mostly, right? And just look at it and just index on it and see if we can make any improvements, right? Are people gaining too much gold? Should they be gaining more experience? Things like this, right? Should we slow it down? Conversely, right? So we're dedicated to making those gameplay changes, especially. That's something that we want to try and do this season, obviously if time pertains, but it is one of those goals and a personal goal of mine that we really do just want to try and improve the core loop as much as we can economically. In regards to new items, I don't think it could get much more direct than that. It's we hear you guys. It's like, you want to do more builds, or you want to find that build that finally makes Elefrost work, right? It's like things like this. Like, we're dedicated to bringing new items to you guys, just because, again, it's more content, it's fun, and it's fun for us to make, right? Which is really what it is. Besides that, though, another thing that we've also heard you guys talk about a lot, whether it be about the map or anything else, is also our basic attacks, namely our ranged ones, right? And we also want to make a commitment that we're looking to improve them however we can, right? And it's one of the things that has been resounding amongst the community that we really do care about and we really have been indexing on to try and improve. So that's pretty much it from my side in terms of things I can give you.
For sure. And I think Blood, you've got some stuff with movement speed penalties. Is that right?
Yeah, it's one thing we're currently looking into. One issue that I personally feel a lot, I play a lot of offlane these days, is that when a player gets a lead, it can be really problematic to the point where some of our heroes just innately run down the other hero and chase them down the lane and kill them before they can get to the safety of the tower. We lose a lot of that tension that you should have in laning phase, where this guy's moving forward, I have to move back and respect that, but then I have my moment to move forward and he has to move back and stuff. We often end up with just, there's Grux and he's really strong and he's just starting to run at me now, and it's like, well, I better just hightail back to my tower before he can even start attacking me, or it becomes problematic. So yeah, the ability to sort of like space and reciprocate is a problem, and this also leads to issues of ranged offlaners as well that we've seen pop up every now and again, where these ranged ADCs and stuff are able to maintain distance for this long period of time before the melee can even catch up to them and even start hitting them. So this will increase the value of some things like crowd control and stuff, and that's why we're doing a lot more sort of like due diligence into it, because it affects a lot of the areas of the game. But by looking into movement speed penalty, I'm hoping that we could find a way to increase it without having any of these problems or deficits of making CC too valuable and stuff, whilst decreasing the potency of things like ranged offlaners or snowballing lanes where people can run others down. And this should hopefully create more interesting dynamics in hero-to-hero interactions where people space a bit more and their abilities matter a bit more. But it plays into everything, right? If a player is slowed 10% more while basic attacking, all of our abilities have been built around the concept of the current move speed penalty. So if Gideon's Q was somewhat decent to land now, it's going to be a much easier sort of ability to land when, ADCs are attacking you and they're slower, and melees are attacking you and they're slower, so we have to reconsider those as well. So it affects a lot of gameplay, but it is something we're looking into so that we can create this nicer sort of dynamic between hero-to-hero interaction.
Your Grux example there, that really hit home there. I've had so many times with a Grux and offlane that just absolutely destroys me. But I've always put it down to my own skill level. So, we'll see. Yeah, that sounds really, really exciting. There's some really cool sounding gameplay changes that I think are going to make things kind of spice things up a little bit. That's what it seems like. Is that pretty much how the design meetings go? We just kind of like, right, how are we going to spice it? We're going to add more spice. How do we do it? Is that kind of how we do our design meetings? No. A little bit more technical. I get it.
No, I would
it
say
depends on the day.
Yeah. Like what we've been talking about recently, and where a lot of this stuff is coming from, is just like, where is the game frustrating at the moment? Like, we're kind of very interested in, like, people are 10 months in, they've been playing the content for a while. Like, some things are becoming very frustrating and definitely pain points, and realistically that's where most of the design decisions around like the core gameplay are coming from. It's like, where are the big frustrations right now? What are future plans? How would they address them? And what can we either do short term to hold us over until some bigger improvements are there, or what are the bigger improvements we want to take on?
Nice. Yeah, it makes sense. And are these sorts of things, are they sort of based on community feedback, on your own experience, a mix of both? Is what sort of goes into those decisions? That can be for Alex, if you like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, these guys can open up as well, but from my perspective, it's definitely like listening to the community first and foremost, and then we have like different sources of testers providing feedback that also help us key in on some areas and contextualize, and then obviously like playing the game ourselves. There are some people within the company that play the game a lot and are able to evaluate a lot of the things that we're hearing from the community and from our different testing groups.
Yeah, makes sense. It's actually, it's I'm going slightly off topic here. I'm sorry, but it is one of the things that I noticed when I joined Ameda is how many people in the studio are always playing the game. It's great, myself included, by the way. It's just it's so cool to see. It's a really, really nice way to be. So let's look kind of way off in the future. We're looking a lot further, let's say, in the future, because it wouldn't be a dev stream unless we spoke about some spicy topics, right? So I guess a feature that we know is on a lot of our sort of veteran players' minds, and probably newer players as well, to be fair, is ranked mode. So Alex, could you tell us what the plan for that is currently?
Yeah, sure. So some of you may remember that it was actually on our roadmap for Season 2 and was unfortunately one of the features we cut when the new UI delay happened. It didn't make it back onto the Season 3 roadmap, and yeah, that's just because we decided to prioritize some other things. However, that doesn't mean that it's far from our mind. We see it as an extremely important feature. It needs to be in the game, in our opinion, before we go free to play, at least for our plans for ranked during free to play is we will go free to play, and there will be a little bit of delay, or let's say time, before the first season of rank kicks off, where players will be able to grind their accounts to the respective player level that we decide is a requirement for ranked, and then the first season of ranked will kick off. However, before that, we will be basically planning to release the feature during early access, run some amount of pre-seasons or very limited sessions of the rank to test all of the different aspects of it and to get feedback on it, so that when we do drop Season 1, when we go free to play, we're in a really good space. So yeah, I can't say exactly when it's coming, but it's high priority as and a must-have for us. And yeah, it's something that I would love to see personally. Right, personally a big fan of ranked, even though forever average, but it's the reason I play games like this. I'm the casual competitive player, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to a rank system. I don't think there's going to be any surprises from maybe what the players are expecting, at least, except it will be solo duo, that will be the focus for the start of it. And yeah, the plan is to have a space that meets the needs of our more competitive minded players and allows us to basically define and progress within that competitive space better.
Yeah, makes sense. And I just want to point out, you said it plenty of times and enough, but we are looking further in future, and we're discussing this stuff quite openly, and it is possible that things change. Just as a caveat, I always like to throw on subject to change on everything, but especially when we're talking about a little bit of topics that are further in the future.
So maybe I could just I saw a question regarding concerns regarding adding more modes and ranked and the player base. So obviously, if we were to turn on ranked right now or any mode, we would split our our player base in a way that would negatively impact matchmaking. That's a consideration we have when taking these things. So we are actively looking at how and when we will be increasing the active player base through different marketing campaigns and promotional activities, as well as basically looking at ways to release things like ranked and other modes in a limited time format that would allow a segregation of the player base, but in a controlled way that just will not persist, right? So it's maybe we do ranked for a weekend and it's the only thing on, right? Everyone just has to play ranked just so we can get data and we can test out the feature. But yeah, we are aware, just switching on 4 modes tomorrow would be terrible, and we will basically do approach it from multiple ways to address that.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. This also leads on really quite nicely to the next topic. So again, want to talk about something a little bit exciting. Look, again, very far off in the future. So let's just remember that with all of this talk. But what I guess import. What can you tell us about any new game mode?
Yeah, so just to piggyback off of what Alex was saying in regards to just adding new modes or queues or however else, right, and segregating the player base, ranked is one of those things that we 100% need going into free to play. It's just part of the core loop of MOBAs. It's a competitive game at the end of the day, but at the same time, it's like there's also times that you want to wind down, and games are also just a vehicle that you play with your friends. So at the same time, we're looking into casual game modes as well, right? League has ARAM, Smite has all of its various different modes, and so on and so forth. And it's something that we're looking into as well. Currently, it's undecided on exactly what direction we're going to go, but understand that we're considering a bunch of different things, right? Obviously, MOBAs inherently are arena-based games. What if you leaned into the arena brawlery aspect more? What if we shrink the party sizes down? Maybe 3v3, 2v2, 4v4. These are all considerations that we're making. And I think in general, it would be really nice to just have something that's just fun, and rather than just being purely competitive. And that's essentially what we're looking into. It's just one of our goals for free to play is like, we need another game mode, a way to wind up or wind down, to warm yourself up before ranked, but we also need ranked to facilitate that loop, right? It's all a part of the MOBA experience that we're trying to provide. Again, like Alex said, nothing too shocking, right? It's probably going to be about what you expect. The same thing that the ranked loop is probably going to be exactly what you expect. But yeah, and everything that we learn from the new game mode whenever it comes out will just help us in one of the biggest community topics, which is just acquiring data and just seeing what works in regards to new maps, right? Which is what everybody wants. So, people ask about verticality and all these different questions and size and rotation times, etc. And everything that we learn from this new game mode will be applied to the map.
Yeah, you've done it again, Import. It's like you're in my mind, I love it. So we're going to move on to some community questions now, for the sort of last half of the stream or so. And as Import was saying, one of the most popular topics was the map. I've got here in my notes, because what I like to do in these streams is call out the people who asked the question. But there were so many people that asked about the map that I've got the original poster as literally everyone. So yeah, it was one of the most popular topics. So I guess the main question to ask, and there's going to be a long list of things to discuss about this. Are we planning on any changes in the future to the map? And if so, what sort of things can people expect to see? We'll pass that one to Import again.
Yep. So obviously I think I can speak comfortably for everybody in the design team in terms of what we would like to iterate on the map, namely for things like rotation times. Like, we would like them to be longer. In general, the map should probably be bigger. The pits should probably change. The pits being the Fangtooth or Prime pit, their orientation, their location, it's all up for debate in our minds. And really, just the nice thing about having a canvas that we can expand upon in a wider map is, we can also make structural changes to the jungle and just make it even more immersive experience than what Predecessor is currently, right? And also, just try and include some more verticality, really lean into this special thing that we have that we just clearly don't use enough, right? Those special moments when you're able to just blink over ground or actually play within pockets that you can really use your blink, or use like Gideon Portal, for instance. Like, we want to be able to emphasize those type of moments even more. And so, yeah, I'll hand it off to anybody else who wants to speak, because I'm sure everybody else wants a piece of the pie, but it's definitely something that all of us very much care about.
Yeah, the map is super interesting. When we first made it, the game was very different way back then, and Fringe and I were just cooking stuff up ourselves in a little kitchen. But yeah, the game's come much further since then. We've got faster base move speeds on characters, and characters function a bit differently now. We have got more characters that access verticality. We're even trying to put more in even as we go along. So it's definitely time that we take another look at the map and try and spruce it up a little bit larger, make those rotation times normalized again, and make sure gameplay's fit for purpose pretty much.
I guess I can add as well. Even though we're discussing this and we have we've already looked into some changes to the map, like we're not expecting to release any map changes this year. Our focus in that regard is on the new mode and our level design resources. But like Import stated, right, like things we're trying to test in the mode are in the idea of like, hey, is this way of accessing verticality on a map level interesting? Is this something that can work in the main map? We've been testing some of these features in the main map already, but yeah, just don't expect a full rework of the map this year. That could change. I think things are always different. Things are changing, but we know it's important. We just want to make sure that we're in the right direction, and we're happy with that. But we are exploring it, and hopefully we have our mindset on exactly how we want to change it soon, and then can deliver a big update to it. There was also a question about seasonal map. I can already confirm there won't be a seasonal map this year for Winterfest. We will have a seasonal event, I hope, if everything goes according to plan. Yeah, we've been working on something there, but we won't, for example, do a snow version of the map this year. It may be something we're able to do in the future. It's just definitely not going to be something we're committing to right now. But it's something that I love in other games, and I hope that we are able to support in the future. And that's just not for this season, but like not for Winterfest, but like for multiple different seasons and events. I think it's a really cool way to spruce up the map a bit.
Yeah, totally agree. I've got to say, with the Import, I think it was Import that was saying this. I mean, we were all talking about verticality, right? But some of my favorite moments have been when I'm escaping certain death. Now, we know that I main Greystone, as much as that for some reason makes some people laugh. Do you main Greystone as well, Alex?
Yeah, I'm a Greystone and Grux enjoyer. I like to press W and
me too.
L and B.
And I love just using Greystone's R&B to just jump out of the jungle. Like, just as I'm about to die, just jump out of jungle. They can't follow me. I absolutely love it. Some of the best moments for me. And again, I know I'm coming from a fairly newbie perspective, but that's important too. So it's really very cool to hear about more changes to the map. As Alex said, as I said before, this is all stuff that we're just chatting about. A lot of things are subject to change, but we know that it's on the team's mind, and yeah, I think that's important. I mean, on the subject of verticality, and this time I can shout out people who have asked questions, because honestly, there was some you never really know what you're going to get when you ask for questions, and I was quite happy to see that there were so many like really good quality, well thought out questions. So this is from Crashy, who has said, how does a meta plan to take advantage of verticality with future designs to either the map or hero kits? I think we've pretty much covered what we can with the map, I think. So if we maybe look specifically on the hero kit side of it, and perhaps Blood, you can start us off. Alex, if you want to jump in and get involved, feel free. And you, Import, why not?
Yeah, no, exploring verticality in hero kits is something that we've been doing a decent amount. It's always tricky because the map doesn't fully accommodate it currently, and also providing verticality to characters in excess will cause problems for characters that can't currently access them. So poor little Grux and his little rhino legs probably can't keep up with most of the other characters that are going over ledges and up walls. But that doesn't mean we don't want to do it. It's just how do we do it in a way that isn't frustrating for other users as well. So yeah, there's upcoming future unique characters and even maybe changes on current Paragon roster that's still to come will be featuring some unique ways to interact with verticality. And another thing I want to be looking into more is characters that impact other heroes that utilize verticality more. So sort of on the inverse and trying to kill a Kalari who's double jumping over walls all the time and counteracting that rather than just doing it yourself as well. And that will allow us to then incorporate more verticality without as excessive changes to the map is one thing we're looking into more. But also just across the roster as a whole, we've also been looking into general universal sort of vertical movement on all characters, if there's a way to incorporate that in some sense. We have items like Galaxy Greaves that people really enjoy, allowing characters like Grux to bounce around where they probably shouldn't, and we'd like to explore that further and see if there's ways that we can do that for most characters on a more base gameplay, core gameplay level, and see if there's any sort of like ideas there that could be fun for people to play with and mess around with, that could probably elevate our game a little bit to more of that faster paced shooter sort of style of gameplay and not just as MOBA and grounded in that 2D space.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I've never tried Galaxy Greaves on Grux before, but now I kind of feel like I need to. Maybe when there's a Kalari
just
in the
game.
game.
You end up in the support role, just buy it like second item. Don't worry about who it is. It's fine.
Yeah. No, I will.
And then just understand why it's fun.
I'll tell them that you told me to do that as well, so that nobody in the game gets upset with me.
Ameda told me to do it.
Yeah, Ameda literally told me to do it. Please go and complain to Alex.
Just if you don't mind, just to chip in also on the conversation as well. One of the struggles that we've actually had in regards to introducing verticality is also just kind of the pre-existing kits that we have and how much they can actually interact in the air. So for instance, you can take the obvious examples like melees, like Declan or Bloodmordius mentioned. Sorry, he mentioned Grux. It's like the same thing with Crunch, but also with mages like Gadget, right? Ground targeted abilities. What happens if a Kalari double jumps and you have a mine on the floor, right? Like these are questions that we have to answer. Or is it like Gadget's kit doesn't need to be different? Like there are questions that need to be answered, but like Declan mentioned, we have to just add new kits that actually can interact with the air, but also maybe find other ways that every hero, even pre-existing Paragon heroes, can interact with the air. So for instance, whether that's, like Steve Superville used to say, just give everybody a grappling hook in our design meetings, the infamous, or, even just create some version of blast cones like they have, or some other sort of thing. These are all ideas we've been thinking about, right? And just things that could happen, right? But it's really it's a very hard question to answer.
It definitely comes down to a resource problem there, where we're like dedicated and it's a requirement that we keep adding new heroes, and it's important that those heroes therefore like meet the future goals. But finding time to address all of the older heroes is a hard balance. So it's something we have to be mindful of with these changes. But yeah, I mean, we're actively testing this stuff, and hopefully with each new hero kit, we're able to add a little bit more, and so that more and more options become available, and then we can go back and address some heroes that really struggle with it if everyone can vertical leap out of every one of Steel's moves, for example.
Yeah, and I think there's also just the idea that we're going to be looking a lot into sort of, at least what I'm doing with hero design, is abilities that can be used while in the air as well. We've had a lot of characters that feel very grounded, like Grux and Bellica, because their Q abilities both can't be used in air, so they can't jump with them. And it's mainly because they look a little bit odd most of the time. We'd like to give them the treatment in future that Fang Mao has. We spent a lot of work to make it so he can cast his ult mid-air, and it extends the animation till he hits the floor. There's cool things like that we can do with those kinds of abilities, and with future kits, we're trying to avoid interactions that's too grounded, so not as much ground targeting in kits unless it's like absolutely needed. More skill shots, more projectile-based gameplay, lobs, things like this. Target abilities, even in some cases, just things that stop players having to interact with this 2D surface as much as possible. They're still valuable, and there's cases where we'll use it, particularly for larger AoEs, and abilities like Steel's Ult is a really good example of where we'd keep it. And it's also a balance lever, and different characters interact in different ways. But in general, in future, we'll mostly be trying to tackle this issue where we don't want characters feeling too grounded at any time.
Nice. Yeah, it's really cool to to just sort of hear your thinking behind everything, because it's from a non-designer perspective, from somebody who's a community manager and effectively tweets and talks for a living. It's very cool to hear like all of the different considerations that you need when thinking about these kits. It's very cool to hear. So if you guys are happy, we can move on to the next community question. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, so again, this is another character one, which I quite like. So it's from Just Got Wicked. When creating new characters, is there a difficulty behind it when trying to keep a design consistency with the original Paragon lineup? That can go to Blood.
Yeah, so I mean, first off, we're trying to also do the inverse a little bit. Every time we introduce these Paragon characters, we're trying to bring them into the Pred universe a little bit more. So this is with the passives and any reworked abilities, things that we feel don't fit our space as well, won't play as well in our space. Serath Kit was a really good example of that, where they just feel completely out of place. So we try and elevate those kits a bit, whilst also then having to make considerations for our future unique character kits to also consider these characters as well. I wish we could go back and just change a bunch of the Paragon characters even more than we have currently, but obviously we got to get stuff in at some point. It'd be really nice to spruce these up a bit more, like I said, with just the Bellica Q idea, just making these characters feel a bit more sort of modern in our Pred universe and grounded within the space of our game and what our players want to do. But yeah, but in terms of the future characters and keeping consistent with the old one, it is tricky. Sometimes our kits may end up feeling overloaded or something. Paragon kits were very simple. We already have to add a passive to them, but they were very simple in what they did, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing, but sometimes we need more complex characters for players to play. Some players like that, and sometimes some more depth that isn't necessarily like going to stop a player from initially picking up a character and playing it well, can be beneficial, and these kits don't necessarily have that built in. Really good examples of this are like Garen from League of Legends. He is very simple, anyone can pick up and play him. He's super easy character, but there is depth there in the way you can utilize these abilities and position and time things, and these can create like edges that players can gain leads with, and these are not as prominent within these like Paragon kit designs initially, and something we have to work in a little bit more. So yeah, it's tricky, but I think it's kind of fun adapting these characters into our game, and sort of fixing the issues we perceive that they had in Paragon. I think that's nice, and yeah, it's overall quite exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there wanting to like be able to go back to some of the original heroes there. I can imagine as you, and again, this is from a non-design head, but as you're sort of we're putting more heroes into the game, I bet that becomes a little bit more like apparent the more you sort of, I guess, get better at doing it, if that makes sense. Is that, maybe that's not even a thing in design, but I imagine it probably is. The more heroes we put in, the more you get ideas for what you could do to previous heroes and stuff like that. So I bet that's I can imagine that being something that you'd like to do if given the time, but priorities, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, whenever we explore unique hero design, sometimes we come up with a cool mechanic, but it doesn't quite fit that character. That can get put on the bench pretty much, but maybe that works for another character that's from before and fits their identity. Maybe that's just going to be used for a future character. But yeah, for the Paragon roster, there's definitely some things we could definitely do differently. Like if I was me now, go back, some things we could have done differently. But then it's also like the resources, like how much do we rework these? Like we've had the benefit of having these characters sort of like given to us in a fairly complete form, and we try and utilize that to the best of our ability to get a roster out quickly, and we don't want to then just throw that away by reworking them all anyway, because then why didn't we just start from scratch in the first place? So we try and utilize that advantage too, which is why some of them come out in the state that they do now.
Yeah, no, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, there is such a thing as, you know, there's a saying, but I had it in my head, but it's gone. But effectively, you know, there is such a thing as being too perfect, right? You know, you could keep iterating on things, you know, forever. So you know, eventually, it's just got to get out, right? So, yeah, no, totally get it. Let's move on to the next community question. Which, to be fair, is kind of actually something that we just discussed. I don't know if you did this on purpose, Blood, but you know, we'll see. I think it's pretty similar. It's from Hybrid97. Are there any plans to rework or tweak any heroes to use more of the full 3D space, or is that going to be saved for a meta original heroes? And I think this is for Alex.
Well, I mean, probably Blood can go into it in more detail, but I think like high level, yes, like a meta heroes, like new original heroes, like one of the questions we like ask of the designers or ask ourselves is like, how does this new hero interact with the verticality space? Like, arguably, what new things can they add? Yeah, trying to figure that out and what that could work is definitely something we're trying to bring with the heroes. It's not always as good, right? Like Serath, for example, doesn't have a lot of verticality inside his kit, so it doesn't always work out, and the kits always don't lead that way. And the design, even though it tried to at different stages, can't always work that out, but it's definitely something we try. As for Paragon heroes, like, again, it's a question we want to ask ourselves, right? Like, there are cases within the kits that there is space to add some verticality or slightly change the way it worked in Paragon, and that's always a question. Like, there's every kit we add into the game is better that we have something there. So yeah, that is at least the goal. It's just not always possible to pull off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we try and explore as much as we can. Sometimes it's not always achieved as well as we'd like, but those things can also, as I said, be used in future characters, and those ideas can be moved forward. Yeah, and as I said, I'd love to tweak some of the older characters to sort of work with Verticality better, whether that's Bellica, Grux, or whoever. That is something we'd like to find time for. Once we're done pumping as many characters out as we do, we're mostly focused on that right now. Get those fresh kits out the door, and then we can start taking a look back and who needs the reworks, who needs the changes, where's that best put, and invest some time there.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Good to hear. Okay, next up, we've got a question from, and again, I feel like I'm going to pronounce people's names wrong. You'll understand, chat, the more that we stream. I'm very bad with just reading names, apparently. So this is from a Reddit user called Havoc. I think that's right. And we'll go for Alex. You can probably chat to this. Why does it seem there's a hesitancy to mix things up or make big changes?
Would I describe it as a hesitancy? No. Have we not made enough big changes? I would probably agree to. Like, looking back, I do think like we could have iterated harder and more on some of the core gameplay aspects. But in general, when we went into early access, we were pretty confident and comfortable with the state of the core game, and at least at the time, players agreed with us. And the focus was really on like what features are missing to go free to play, and how can we just increase the roster, right? Like that was like our goals. These were the two goals for the beginning, especially as we knew we were missing some features that support retention and player engagement. We were basically expecting our player engagement and retention to be built off basically doing balance patches, releasing heroes. So that's where all of our investment was. And it definitely meant that outside of like the Fangtooth changes that we did in season 1, like we haven't really touched the core gameplay in any meaningful way, and that was something we really like felt needed to change. And so it's a big discussion for this season, and we have a lot of different options that we're testing, and the guys have already spoken a little bit about them. So I definitely think we didn't change enough or try enough. I am a little bit, I guess that there is some hesitancy, right? Like Paragon did change a lot of things at a certain time. I don't think we necessarily have that problem. Like we would encounter the same issues that they did, but I definitely think moving forward, at least for the remainder of early access, we are going to try and change more and try some things. But like in general, there's whether we like it or not, there's always going to be a consequence for failure. So it has to be done with some amount of measured ability. But yeah, I think we definitely could have done more. And I hope that throughout this season we do more.
Very nice. Yeah. It's I feel like that's quite a like I don't know, it felt like, I don't know, raw and a bit emotional there, Alex. That was I liked it. All right. It's it's good. It's good to hear. Yeah, I mean it's we should probably go on to the next question. I'm just having a look over the time. But we're doing all right. We're doing all right for time, so this is good. This is a good thing. Let's move on to another one. So this is for Elder Rain, from Elder Rain. And really, this could probably go to Alex again, but if anybody else wants to jump in, do feel free. What is one feature that is currently in the game but wasn't at early access launch that you think should have been ready at early access?
Yeah, so I really like this question, and my notes are like still to think up an answer on it. I do have an answer now, but it's actually a really it was a very thought-provoking question where I was just like, to be honest, there are things that aren't in the game now that I still think should have been done when we launched EA. I think one of the best examples of this is just like a better onboarding experience. Like I think even though we've made some effort to improve that, adding a tutorial, adding solo versus AI, we don't have a great experience for new players. It's you come on and you're on the main menu and that's it. There's no rewards, there's no guidance, there's no how to get into the game in any way. And I mean that's arguably fine for early access because some of our players knew what they were getting into, but I definitely think and kind of wished it'd been better. And yeah, I think that would be my answer. Like what we do have in the game should have been there for EA, and what we're planning to add into the game over the coming months arguably could have been already in the game as well. And yeah, it could have made for a different EA launch, and we would have like different problems today as opposed to what we have now.
I suppose you could argue with this. Well, argues the wrong word, but I guess a sort of counter to this is that I would see this question as, you know, if you had infinite money and people, you know, that's kind of how I see it, because, you know, there are restrictions with resources and things like that to consider. So it's not a case of, you know, we should have done this. It's more a case of, you know, prioritizing things, right? And it would be great if we had those things in early access, but for the various reasons we didn't, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes to say just that our approach to early access compared to, let's say, some companies' more modern approach, right? Like some companies go into early access as a way of like saying, hey, basically the game's ready. We're not going to make many changes. Like, let's just test some of the aspects. And we approached it more like, here's this thing that we have, like this cool gameplay experience. Let us know what you think, and we'll build the game around you. And that was at least our intention there. So I mean that's fair, right? Like infinite time and money, we would be launching like open beta and then going free to play, right? Like the after a little bit of iteration. But yeah, no, I think that's fair.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so let's jump on to another one. So let's go for a question from Axel Steel V3. Are any Omega original quadrupedal heroes scheduled to be added into the game soon? Alex, you've spoken a lot. Maybe I can I throw this to Blood? I'm going to throw this to Blood. Is that all right?
Yeah, no, of course.
All right, yeah, you can answer in a minute, Alex.
Yeah, not currently is any scheduled, but it's something that is super exciting to think about working on. We've been looking a lot in terms of animation for these kinds of upcoming unique characters. Serath was like a really big step on that in terms of the way he actually animates in terms of his movement is very, very particular and super interesting. It was really cool going through that with animator Brandon, who worked on it, and just how he's tried to capture that sense of this sort of like lizard raptor feet running. It's very unique, very different from the way any other character moves in our game. Getting to 4 legs, much more difficult. This is gonna, we've got this whole IK system that involves walking upstairs and everything, and how each foot's placed appropriately. We got to make that work for 4 legs, which is a far greater challenge than it will probably seem. But yeah, no, it's super cool. It's something that'll be super unique in our game in terms of the way it looks and feels immersive. I think there's a lot of cool hero concepts that open up when we have quadrupedal characters. I think that's super nice. So yeah, no, I'm excited for it, but currently not scheduled. And
Alex, I'm going off on a bit of it's not a tangent, but it is also a tangent. Hopefully you'll get used to these. I remember seeing on one of our chats that there were some kind of difficulties with Zaras's legs, or there's some kind of talking point that was happening, and this was being spoken about, I think, when you were going on Predcast. So do you remember what that was? Because it was a unique challenge, right? And was it anything with design that made it quite difficult to make Zaras's legs, actually do it? I know it's mainly animation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would let Declan answer this, because I believe it was like him and Brandon working on solving these issues. But like, yeah, because he has a tail, because of the way his feet work, they encountered some difficulties that they had to overcome.
Yeah, no, it definitely was more tricky. The general like flow of the leg and the way it moves was always hard, especially adapting it to then our IK system, which is very much set up for more human-esque legs. If you think about every character that's currently in the game, even Howard serves mech legs, can all follow the same system very easily. This one's a little bit more tricky. The legs are just shaped completely differently, and the way he stands is completely different. And then the way that transitions into a running animation is very different, and then all the pivots and leans and everything. And then, like Alex mentioned, the tail was super important in that regard too. We wanted to make that aspect of him feel very much more lifelike and realistic. So having that flow with the movement correctly is really difficult, because you've got to think about every animation, every way he can which way turn and move around the map. This tail's got to flow the correct direction, right? Never look uncanny, which is really tricky in itself. Now that we've done that once, easier the next time, but will still always be a challenge whenever we implement a character like that.
And I think that comes like nicely back to the like 4-legged heroes or more, is just like, it's a challenge to overcome, and the team really needs to like build up to that. So it's like, how can we challenge ourselves in smaller, more manageable ways that don't impact our cadence and require us to build a load of tech and risk a lot, and basically build up to more complicated animated heroes.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the mute button. professional stream. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually remember, I don't know when it was, and I don't know why it was happening, but I like my Twitter or X, and I remember art/animation Twitter going really crazy over somebody like a model's feet being perfectly aligned at all points on some stairs, and people like, memeing about how, all of us normal people, like me, will never understand why it's so cool. So I guess it's a similar thing with Serath's legs. It's just, Blood, you listed off so many considerations that you've got to think about there. Like, and probably a good 3/4 of them I wouldn't even think about. But it's fine. I'm not paid to do that. Nobody worry. I'm not designing heroes. That would be bad. So let's jump over to another question. If everyone's happy, if anybody else has anything to add, we all good? All right, wonderful. So the next one is again from Elder Rain. Would you consider having Prime / Fang attacks being skill shots for players to avoid? Blood?
Yeah, it is an interesting one. So, of course, with Orb, we have some dodgeable abilities per se, like the Ground Slam is avoidable and the Knockback to a degree is avoidable, with Mini even more so. We need reliable damage on objectives, so we can't make like the basic attack dodgeable. This is just not something that really works for gameplay. There has to be a cost to committing to a neutral objective. That's really important. It makes tanks more valued, and it makes the threat of doing the objective more important and creates more tension when other players are getting involved. And does he steal? Does he engage on us? Does he kill us? Did I get too low? It starts bringing a lot of questions to players' minds that allow them to make decisions, which are really, really fun, and create sort of more dynamic gameplay. So there has to be some consistent damage there. The way we'd want abilities to be dodgeable is like the Ground Slam from Orb. This is something that creates an area of denial, which again is assisting other players from coming in and capitalizing on that. If there's a steal coming into the pit and the Orb does his slam and that groups players into sort of a more cornered area, that allows steal to now better easy land that ult, and gives them a moment to sort of capitalize and engage on, which makes that objective more of a threat to take and means the players have to play more strategically around vision, and when they peel off and how do they keep people away and when do they turn and all these other aspects. So most damage does have to be fairly confirmed, so we can't have everything dodgeable, but it's okay to have certain abilities dodgeable, but then they also need to create sort of this tension in gameplay where other players can then capitalize on the fact they dodged that ability or manipulate them into it too, and all the questions they get asked around that. Do I knock this guy into the prime knockback, which then I can CC him again off of that and create this CC loop, and now he can't secure it and now my team can take it and stuff. There's like all these cool things that can start popping up, and it's how you get really cool like highlight moments around objective-based gameplay. It's one of the unique things about it. So yeah, whether we change up their abilities at all in future or do anything cool with them is a question mark, but they will always have a large degree of confirmed damage just to make sure it's a risk to take.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting I don't know how you felt, chat, but I certainly feel like we're getting a glimpse into the mind of Bloodmordius with how you're thinking about all of this stuff. Again, it boggles my mind, but yeah, it's something. It's very cool. All right, let's jump over to another community question. I think we've got a little bit of extra of time, so we should be all right. So next question is specifically about lore. It's from Samir3030. There hasn't been any lore for the game so far. Why are we playing the game in terms of the game lore? What is the point of the matches and how does it contribute to the lore? Alex, I think you can jump on that.
Yeah, so I'm not going to answer those questions specifically, but I will talk about lore in a more general sense and how we are approaching it at Meta at the moment, because I just don't have the answers to those very specific questions right now. We have an idea on how we want to structure the lore, but for us, lore is just not a priority right now. We see it as a very important part of like the MOBA space, and I think there have been good examples of games really utilizing it. And even on a kit by kit basis, like I think there are really great examples where lore can help bring heroes further, and make them better and more interesting and make them more appealing, and I think people can really connect to that, and I think it's very important. So although we're not like investing in it right now and we're not putting out any kind of lore content, we are considering it on the back end, like internally when looking at hero kits, specifically new ones that from ourselves, like how they would fit into the kind of existing roster, what interactions they could have if we so deemed, and we have planned some kind of interactions or crossovers with other characters. It's just not all of it is kind of basically made it into a public face setting because we're trying to not commit at the moment, because I think when we undertake lore in a more serious manner, whether that be in game or via like community engagement or like, you know, short stories on websites, etc., or cinematics, we kind of want to approach it from a more structured point of view, and like I said, right now, like we're not building a team to address that, and the focus is really on kind of getting the game ready for free to play, and we see it as kind of a post free to play subject topic that we want to approach. I don't know if maybe Vlad, you wanted to add something about your approach to the topic on heroes specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think lore is an important pillar when it comes to hero design, mainly just to keep things connected, consistent, and more interesting in that regard. A lot of people can build up attachment through this. You know, not everyone is going to enjoy and go read the lore and stuff, and that's fine. That's not always what it's there for. It's nice that people can have stories to delve into if they're the kind of player that likes looking at that stuff. But it also helps us create these sort of cohesive and more interesting characters that have a bit more depth to them. The reason why their kit is, the reason how they use their kit is like important questions that can get answered through lore. So it does help tie things together to a degree, so it is useful. You know, when you can't have a character, you should have a loose idea of how it fits into this universe. You know, like how did Serath like exist in this world and such, and why does he do the things that he does? And just having an idea of that in your head in terms of the lore is important, and something that I use to help drive kit design a little bit and make things feel a bit more thematically pleasing. You know, you're not going to have Serath just turning his spear into a gun and shooting it for whatever reason. That's just not part of who he is. And those are the kind of things that we try and ground and keep more realistic within the character itself. So yeah, important to a degree, but it definitely isn't the be-all end-all for our current roster.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think something you said there as well, Alex, is, you know, taking it quite seriously when we get to it, wanting to make it, effectively wanting to make it good, you know, not just kind of being like, yeah, we need lore quickly, you know. It does, you're right, you know, it does need to be well thought out, but as you say, priorities, you know, gameplay and features for free to play makes perfect sense. Yeah, let's jump on to another question, and then we've probably we can do another one. I am going to pronounce this name completely wrong. I'm going to say I've been looking at it all day trying to figure out how you pronounce it. So I'm just going to try, and we can all laugh about it together when the person says that's absolutely not how you pronounce it. This is from Wasenkin. There you go. Alex is smiling, going, that's absolutely not how you pronounce it.
Man, I just would have... No, I'm terrible at names as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question about balance. So it's what data are you using to balance? Have the tournaments been watched at all to see how higher level play, to get a better idea? How higher level players play to get a better idea of balance? And I think we can go for import on this.
Yeah, so obviously we're all fans of the competitive scene here, right? Like we all watch it. If anything, like it's actually kind of like a company-wide thing, right? Like everybody's always like talking about it and stuff like this, so it's really cool in that sense. In regards to how it affects balance, it's really just obviously you can see what's strong, and trickle down effect is real. So as soon as good players play it, more players start playing it, you instantly see pick rates of, let's say, heroes like Fang Mao after the last PCC. It just goes up, shocker. And people realize, oh yeah, this thing is really, really strong. And so indirectly it affects balance, but it's not, for instance, like it's not the thing that drives balance, if that makes sense. We're always balancing within our own goals and within like trying to create better gameplay is truly like the short answer of it, right? But yes, it's like, do we look at tournament data in regards to pick rates, ban rates, win rates, etc.? Of course we look at it, but it does not drive balance at all, no.
Okay. Anything to add, Alex or Blood? Are you good? I want to give you the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, in a general sense, we do try and balance towards high end a little bit, but the most important thing is a majority of our players, in terms of the, I'm not even going to say more casual at this point. They're all pretty good at moving themselves and more experienced now. But this wider player base is pretty important to balance for, and the experience in solo queue or duo queue or whatever it may be. These things are like super important, something we're trying to pay more and more attention to, and making sure no characters go too untouched when they're problematic for long periods of time. Try and reel those in a little bit more, regardless of how good they might be in competitive play. It could be like a character we release is just not that great for competitive. Maybe people haven't learned it as well yet, or maybe it's just not that great. But it can be a terror on solo queue, and that can occur. And it can be hard to balance for like both ends of the spectrum per se, of solo queue and more competitive play. It's very different environments, but it's something we're really cognizant of, and trying to make sure that general level of play is really refined, and we maintain a good balance there.
Yeah, good. Alex is working, I bet. Look, he's looking away from the screen. He's been pinged. He's an important guy, everyone. Okay,
Definitely
Alex is very important. He's
I'm just like
definitely been
reading
pinged.
chat on the side, checking the notes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so we've got time for one final question, and I'm gonna put this out there now. I'm very aware that we haven't been able to get around to answering every single question that was in that Reddit thread. There are going to be more of these streams, and we did have a look to see like what some of the most kind of popular topics were, and tried to sort of put them at the start. So I hope that your questions have been answered, whether slightly indirectly or directly, from just some of the general topics we were talking about at the beginning. Certainly a lot of people were really interested in the map stuff. So again, I do hope that has answered the majority of the questions. Let's get on to the last topic, which is from Mr. Cappy. What is your plan with new player onboarding? That's it. That's pretty much the gist of the question. I'm going to throw it over to Alex.
Yeah. So our plans are pretty broad in this regard, right? Like, on one level, it's like what Import was talking about earlier regarding a new game mode, right? Like, one of the ideas for a potential new game mode is a place where new players can come in and learn heroes and start to get an introduction to a game that is maybe in a shorter format than what the main 5v5 mode requires. Another way is, for example, I think in one of Soul Reaper's recent streams, he talked very well about is like at the moment, like all of our players are just playing the same game mode, all in the same space, and that's everyone from me and my casual matches in the evening to people like grinding and trying to sweat on the game. So giving other outlets for other people, so ranked mode, for example, bringing in a place where the people that want to play very competitively and will get frustrated with more casual players being in their games have a place to go, so that basically the game becomes more segmented for different people looking for different things, and that the game facilitates those types of players. In addition to that, we plan to expand the onboarding, right? Our first tutorial is more a system for delivering tutorials, and we have some ideas to expand it with like a more advanced tutorial and even role-based tutorials. However, like tutorials are always questionable in value and to how far they will go. So we want to make sure that our onboarding experience is also kind of locked in with a rewarding progression. Basically, coming to a MOBA is can be quite exciting. There's all of these heroes, all of these characters. You know what they do, you know who they are. This one's interesting. I want to see what that one does. So it's basically like supporting a player journey that's like, hey, here's heroes. Try this, try that. Now you can play with this one. Like working towards some goal on another hero, and basically allow players to experience the game and be rewarded for experiencing the game, and onboard them like at a good pace to getting a sizable pool of heroes to play the game with and interact with, and still give them space to explore and experiment, and then just like have all of those systems kind of work together. Is our current goal. Like I said, there's a lot of things, right? So we're working on quests so that we can support very more like directed stuff, you know, like I said, tutorials, game modes, different ways to engage. So yeah, that will kind of be everything. I don't know if the other guys want to add anything, but
yeah, all good. I think you covered most of it.
All good from my side as well.
Very nice. I like it. Yeah, that sounds exciting, especially as somebody who, you know, was a new player fairly recently. I mean, you know, we're probably talking like, you know, May now, so it's been a few months, but yeah, it's still, you know, quite fresh in my mind. So yeah, it's really, really cool to hear about. As I say, that was the last question that we've got time for today. Unfortunately, we'd love to stay a little bit longer, but we unfortunately can't. It's very late for us, even later for those of us that aren't in my time zone. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure doing this. Slightly terrifying. Remember, this is you three have done this before. I've not. This is my first meta stream, so this was slightly terrifying, but it's been very nice doing it. And we do have plans for more, so do keep an eye on our social channels for more stream news. As I say, hopefully we got through a lot of the main topics, and hopefully you enjoyed yourselves, everyone in the chat, and obviously you three as well. I hope you enjoyed yourselves as well. But I'll get to you in a minute. So for the chat, if you did enjoy the stream, or if you have any feedback, do feel free to chat about it in Discord. Feel free to ping me or drop me a DM if you think there could be any improvements. We're always looking on ways that we can improve the sort of communication and you know, the way that we do things with live streams, videos, etc. But for now, we've got to say goodbye. So thanks so much, Import, Bloodmordius, and Alex for joining us. Have you all had a wonderful time?
Yep.
Of course.
Yeah,
Look at them.
It was great.
They're ecstatic, all of them. Yeah, we'll be...
I hope we can do it again, right? Like I think
100%.
It's something that like I think we can just benefit from, right? Like obviously we didn't answer everything, but maybe we'll have more answers next time. And just the more regular and frequent we can have it, the better conversations we can have with the community, and find more time to address and discuss in more detail different issues that arise.
Absolutely. All right. Wonderful. Well, again, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thank you so much to our wonderful guests for joining us. Have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are, and we'll see you on the next stream. See you later. Goodbye.